What's going on, you guys? My name's Ty Knotts, and welcome to Top 5 Unknowns. 5 psychics who helped solve investigations. Number 5. In June of 1996, a 21-year-old single mother named Nicole left her young daughter with her parents to go out for the night. According to an episode of Psychic Investigators, Nicole failed to return home the following day, prompting her father to report her as missing to Detective Jim Novak of the New Jersey Police Department. Detectives interviewed Nicole's boyfriend, Michael Reed, who told investigators that he'd last seen Nicole before she'd gone out drinking on the night of her disappearance. According to Detective Novak, he immediately knew that Michael must have been involved, as Michael was referring to Nicole in the past tense, saying such things as "I didn't love her and we were only friends." However, at this point, the detective had no evidence to back up his suspicions. 2 days quickly passed, and Nicole's car was never found, nor were there any additional leads on her case. Rather desperate for answers, Nicole's mother phoned her uncle, who was also a police officer, and he suggested a local psychic who may be able to help. He'd worked with her in the past, and he had a knack for helping solve missing persons cases. So with no other options, Nicole's mother phoned in to local psychic Frank St. James. Frank requested a photo of Nicole, and immediately upon seeing it, he delivered the news that Nicole was no longer alive. This was on the 3rd day of her disappearance. Afterward, Nicole's family invited Frank over to their home in hopes of gathering additional information. After taking a look around the house, Frank entered the family's kitchen, where he claims to have made contact with Nicole's spirit, who showed him a vision of her car in a marshy area that he insisted was very close to home. He suggested searching the area with a helicopter or plane. Detective Novak was able to locate and secure a helicopter for police use, and began to search local marshy areas for any leads. Novak reportedly stated that he began to pray to find some sort of clue, otherwise he may never live this case down. 5 days after Nicole's disappearance, a helicopter spotted her car in a secluded marshy area. Police were sent to the scene and conducted a ground-level search, where they confirmed that the car was hers and found her body inside. Her ex-boyfriend Michael was charged for her death, which was ruled an intentional drug overdose, and was soon sentenced to 10 years in prison. When recalling the case many years later, Detective Novak stated, "We had nothing. We found Nicole based on information supplied to us by a psychic, and that's it. I don't see how anyone could dispute it." Number 4. Rosemary Kerr is a psychic who's been featured in the 2007 series of Psychic Detectives, specifically the episode called Midnight Strangers, involving the murder of Andre Deigel. Andre went missing back in 1987 after leaving a local Louisiana bar with an unknown woman. Police and family members began an extensive search for any clues, predominantly in the New Orleans area, yet turned up nothing. After about 3 days of sleepless searching, Andre's sisters reached out to a local psychic desperate for answers. She sent her a photo of Andre and a map of Louisiana. Immediately after touching the photograph, psychic Rosemary stated that she knew something awful had happened to them, and stated that she felt there was a sense of urgency stronger than she'd ever felt before. After opening up a map, she said her eyes were immediately drawn to a small suburb known as Slidell. Andre's sister called the other family member and told them to get to Slidell as quickly as possible. Andre's family raced to the small suburban area, and immediately after exiting the highway, noticed Andre's truck on the side of the road. According to local police officers, as the family pulled up to the truck, there were 2 unknown men next to it, with Andre's brother flagging down a cop car, leading the 2 men to be arrested. However, there was still no evidence of foul play. The 2 were simply in possession of stolen property. Captain James Gallagher then decided it would be best to take the psychic to the last place that Andre was seen, the bar where he'd been seen with the unknown woman. According to the psychic, Andre was no longer alive and he'd been murdered by the 2 men. Rosemary was able to connect with Andre's spirit and began having visions of a body of water and a set of railroad tracks. The officer states that Rosemary described the area in extreme detail, stating that the number 7 was very important somehow. The detective soon learned that the apartment number of the 2 suspects was 7. He searched their room and found a large blood stain confirmed to have been Andre's. The suspects later confessed to using a female accomplice to lure Andre from the bar, where they then killed him in some sort of plot to become involved with the mafia, though this reasoning remains a bit unclear. The 2 men then led police to Andre's body, and the scene was exactly as the psychic had described. The officer was quoted as saying that he was both stunned and amazed. The psychic later testified in the trial against the 2 men and was reportedly the first psychic to ever be on public record in a court case. Number 3. Cynthia and Jon Frey were known as high school sweethearts of Boca Raton, and they were both reported missing in January of 1978. According to a detailed television special, Palm Beach County Police phoned a psychic known as Phil Jordan after the couple's car was found submerged in a canal. Jordan was brought to a picnicking location where the two were believed to have visited earlier that day, and at the scene, Phil reportedly told investigators that they'd been approached by two unknown men, one carrying a rifle and one carrying a shotgun. He informed police that they were almost certainly dead, presumably by gunshots to the back of the head. Among the visions Phil claims to have received, he reported seeing a white house which was in disrepair with dark trim. The detective told Phil that they'd already searched an old white house, but that it turned up nothing, but that they would search it again. This time, they discovered that the house had been emptied and all that remained were shell casings from a .22 caliber rifle. The investigation went cold about 2 months later, when a cyclist stumbled upon two bodies of individuals later confirmed to have been Cynthia and Jon. The cause of death for them both was gunshot wounds to the head, inflicted by a .22 caliber rifle. Due to their success with him in the past, officers contacted Phil once more and asked if he could give them a detailed description of the two people responsible for the murders. He supplied police with a drawing of what he believed the shooters to look like, and stressed that the letter A was heavily tied to one of the suspects. He stated that both of them were Mexican and that a dog would be strongly tied to the case. Just a short while later, a young man was assaulted in the area, and the description of the man who assaulted her was strikingly similar to the man Phil had just described. Detectives asked if she knew his name, and she revealed that his name was Adam Herrera. The man was located and immediately arrested. Upon seeing his face in the news, a local man contacted police and informed them that he'd just recently sold Adam a dog, and that he knew without a doubt he was the one responsible for the murders of Cynthia and Frey. Detectives began an investigation on Adam further and found that he once owned the abandoned White House where they found the bullet casings. Adam and an unnamed accomplice were soon found guilty of the murders, with each of the men receiving 2 life sentences in prison without parole. Number 2. Jackie Poole was a young woman whose body was found near her London apartment back in 1983. She'd been sexually assaulted and reportedly strangled with some sort of cord. On the night that her body was discovered, a local psychic claimed to have contacted her spirit, providing details that Jackie had been recently divorced, going as far as to supply her maiden name to investigators. A constable was sent to interview the psychic, named Christine. He reported that he was utterly amazed at the amount of detail she was able to provide about Jackie's life. Christine is also said to have informed officers that her killer's name was Pokey, and provided details about his look, tattoos, and possible location. As it would turn out, Jackie was soon discovered to have been dating Pokey, with his real name being Anthony Ruark. His appearance matched the psychic's vision exactly. Police soon found a sweater that was found with Jackie's DNA on it, though after a 15-month investigation, the case ran cold. 18 years later, skin that was found underneath Jackie's fingernails was examined alongside a bodily swab from the crime scene. The DNA was found to have been Pokey's and was found on record as he committed a crime in the year 2000. According to officers, he was linked to the case through a 1 in a billion match. The retired constable who originally interviewed the psychic attended the trial of Pokey. According to officers, he documented 130 bits of information from the psychic, and was curious how many of them would turn out to be correct. As the trial concluded, 120 of the remarks had been confirmed. The jury found Pokey guilty and he was sentenced to life in prison. Number 1. Back in 1996, an Ohio state trooper reported his wife Jennifer missing, claiming that she'd cleaned out everything he owned, with him finding nothing but their wedding rings lying on the kitchen counter. Jennifer's mother immediately spoke up and dismissed the idea that she would ever leave behind her husband or her children for that matter. Georgia Rudolph was a local psychic who reportedly had worked with police for over 2 decades. He informed police that he'd been connecting with Jennifer's spirit and that she was without a doubt dead. He continued on to state that she'd been shot in the back of the head and the man that murdered her was likely a cop. He also told an investigator that her body could be found just south of town, nearby a road with a link to the numbers 298. Just a day later, the investigator conducted a search after a woman phoned in reporting seeing an out-of-town patrol car near Highway 298 right around the time of Jennifer's disappearance. Detective Garvey called upon another investigator to the scene, and together they were able to locate the freshly dug grave of Jennifer. A jury later found that Jack McCready, her husband, was guilty of the murder. According to Kevin Rings, a prosecuting attorney, without the information that the psychic had provided, the case would have never held up in court, and they may never have been able to locate Jennifer's body. The case would have simply gone unsolved. Not only was the psychic able to accurately locate the body, but she was also able to say that Jennifer had passed away before any other investigators even had a suspicion of this. To top it off, no one would have ever suspected a cop of carrying out such a crime, let alone her own husband, and let alone the very person to have reported her missing. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.